Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is the Black Woman in the Corner Office.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner office. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Stone, and as always, I am delighted to be here with you today. I'm excited about you joining the podcast for you, the woman, the Black woman navigating workplaces all over this country. And as usual, I have a fantastic guest for you today. So before we talk to her, just want to remind you, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest. Our guest today is Miss Regina Martin. She is a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's a professor. She's a speaker. She's a coach. She's doing all of the things. She is even, believe it or not, a best selling author. How do you throw that in there? Doing all of the things, right? She is the owner of Dare to Dream motivational speaking and coaching. I wanted to make sure I get that right. In her book that I just showed you, it's called You Belong Here: Transitioning to Success, High School to College Edition. And I've told her that her book could not have been better timing for me because, as you guys know, I have a junior who will be going into his senior year. And so this book is going to be great to help him. Regina is passionate about what she does. And I believe you'll see that in our conversation. So, Regina, welcome.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Stone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm excited to get into your journey. I'm excited to understand how we got to the point that you thought that the book was necessary, how you got to the point that you felt the need to open Dare to Dream. So we're going to get into all of that tonight. But before we do that, I want to go back to the beginning and I want to talk about your career journey. I want to go all the way back to as far as you want to go back to when your career started. Tell me about that journey. What it looked like when you started and kind of where some highs and lows were and what got you to where you are today as a professor.
Well, first of all, once again, thank you for having me. And the way you were going further back, I'm saying to myself, is she aging me or am I aging myself?
look,
But it's
look,
okay.
I could go right on back there with you. So no ma'am.
Well, the best way for me to describe my journey is to talk about how I came into this educational space. Um, I was a federal government employee a long time ago, not too far, but what happened was my daughter was a part of a college readiness program. And I decided to become a part of the educational space because of her. Um, I saw how excited she was about preparing for college, and I wanted to be a part of that experience with her, not as a parent necessarily, but I wanted to educate myself on the process myself. Because, as parents, we think we are the knowers of all things until we're not. Um, in my journey in working in the federal government space, here was my plan. I was going to work that job until I retired. I had it all figured out until I didn't. Um, the boss that I had, she decided to retire. And what happened was she was trying to groom me to take over for her when she left. And it didn't turn out that way. I applied for the position and then they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction. Now, I had just gotten my bachelor's degree in business management. So I figured in combination with my work experience that I was primed to slide into that role. Um, and then transparently, I started making some really rookie mistakes at my job,
Mm.
which caused me to kind of reflect and think about, okay, am I so caught up on the fact that I was rejected for this role that I'm not really focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing? So I
So
took
let
the
me ask you,
approach.
before we
Yeah,
go on, I
yeah,
gotta stop you and ask
yeah,
you if you're comfortable sharing,
sure.
what are some of those rookie mistakes? Because there's somebody out there somewhere that is making the rookie mistakes. And listen, I could tell you, I could tell you about some mistakes that I've made. So I'm sure folks will want to hear about it. Listen, I talked about in the book how I just got up and walked out of a job one day. That is not how you leave a job. But
Mhm.
what tell me what some of those rookie mistakes are or were so that some of our listeners can overcome them.
Well, the rookie mistakes that I would say would be that I was trying to overthink things. And in the result of me overthinking things, I was missing key components to what I was supposed to be doing in my job.
Okay.
And for me, there are some of us that are in professional roles who want to perfect those roles so that people can notice you. But I think, like I said, I was inside my head so much about what transpired that the things that I normally would catch, I didn't catch.
Mm,
Um, Overthinking, rethinking, missing things. That's what I mean by rookie mistakes. And sometimes that has a lot to do with your mindset at the time that you're in the middle of it all. And like I said, I had been working this job for almost 11 years. So it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. I
yeah.
just think that things that I should have caught, I didn't catch. And that has to do with your mentality. It has to do with your self confidence. It has to do with doubting yourself or doubting your ability to do the job.
Yeah.
And in my mind, when I started making those rookie mistakes, I tried to cover them up. And
Mm,
I'm being very transparent for your
yes.
audience because I
Thank
think
you.
it's important to own where you were in the process.
Yeah.
It would be so easy for me to blame the process or the procedures or what happened and who did what, but I have to take responsibility. And I think a lot of times when we make mistakes, whether they're minor or major, the biggest takeaway that you have to have is being able to own your role in it. And for a very long time, I did not do that. I I was in my feelings. I felt like, you guys want me to train the person who is set to replace the person for the job that I was going after. You want me to train that person too?
Yes.
So I think that that did not sit well with my spirit. And as a result, when you get something in your mind, you start overthinking and overplaying and overprocessing things. And
Yes.
as a result, you start doing things that, like I said, making rookie mistakes. So my decision was to walk away from that job. Dr. Ebony, I was making almost $80,000 a year when I left. That was the hardest decision I had ever made in my life. But my mindset at that time was, I'm going to get them before they get me.
Yeah, so listen, there are a couple of things, you talk about being in your feelings, and I love that you said that. We are not
Mhm,
robots. We may be living in an AI time and generation, but we have feelings.
mhm.
And those feelings sometimes take over. And so to your point, mindset is huge. We've got to take control of our own mindset. And sometimes that means removing yourself from the situation so that you can. I also love that you talked about where you were and how difficult it was to walk away. Just a couple episodes ago, we talked about how your value is not in a title, it's not in a paycheck. But baby, those paychecks are hard to walk away from sometimes. Right? But that is not where your value is.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So you walk away and you're at this point where your daughter is about to go to college. And she's in a college readiness program. Is
Mhm.
that when you started thinking about going into education, or was there another pivotal moment for you?
No. When she started being a part of this program, I volunteered to go on a college tour with her, and I
Okay.
wasn't getting compensated at that time. And I enjoyed the experience of immersing myself with young people and wanting to kind of see the excitement in their eyes, trying to discover the next chapter in their lives, in the academic journey. And the director of the program said, "You need to go back to school and get your master's." And you need to do it in education because you're really good at this. You're good with kids. You definitely have a passion for it. So I like to tell people that that was the beginning of the second chapter of my life. The government
Mm,
and all of that was my first chapter because, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, my go-to plan was I was going to stay in the government until I could retire. At this point, and if I had stayed, I could have retired at 57 because of the
okay.
years that I had in.
Yeah.
But
You
then, you
you
know,
had one of those good government jobs, let's say?
I had one of those good government jobs, and I really I really enjoyed my job. I really
Yeah.
did because it was human resources. It allowed me to interact and engage with humans,
Yeah.
helping them, supporting them. I worked for law clerks, and I supported federal judges, and the support staff that was within the court system. So I enjoyed it because it allowed me to be around people. Um, so for
Well, let me
me, that
I'm
was
sorry, go ahead.
no, that was okay. That's okay. I was gonna say for me, that was the cherry on the top of my sundae until the cherry fell off.
Yeah. All right, so let's go there. The cherry falls off, and you're in this transition phase. You're going from the government role that you have, and you're trying to figure out how to move into this educational space. You got to
Mhm,
get another degree.
mhm,
And one of the things that I always say is we don't leave life at home when we go to work, but when we come home, we also don't leave work at the door because we are humans and we might cut it off, but it is still there. And oftentimes it impacts it. Would you say the transition had an impact on your family? And if so, how? And how did you overcome that?
It was definitely a hard transition because we, as a family, we were accustomed to the benefits that working for the federal government afforded me. I had an excellent benefit package. Um, all of the bells and whistles that go along with a job such as that. And I had to learn to adjust.
Yeah.
um you know Me trying to go to unemployment and try to find a job and trying to figure all that stuff out, while, like I mentioned before, I decided that this education thing, I'm going to give it a shot. So trying to navigate, trying to find a job, trying to go to college online, I might add. It was not in a traditional brick and mortar classroom. All along had the same responsibilities that I had when I was working my 9 to 5. I had to make sure the kids were good, made sure I went to parent teacher conferences, make sure that the house was straight, and in the middle of all of this, 2 years prior, my husband has suffered a stroke.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah, so you think about, you have a life changing and altering situation.
Yeah.
What in the world would have made me think that it was okay for me to walk away from my lucrative job when my husband was suffering from a health crisis and had to readjust and reshift because he was commuting to New York every day. So
Okay.
I say that to say we were comfortable,
Yeah.
and until we weren't, and we had to make some adjustments. But as transparent as I need to be, I was in my head, I knew I needed to make the adjustments, but my actions did not back it up. I was
Mm,
still moving as if I was working that job, but yet I wasn't willing to make those adjustments until I made the decision to go back to school and really dig deep into the education space and find out that, okay, this is actually a good thing. So yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I
Yeah.
think it's so important that we share our stories and that people don't get the impression that I see Regina on a podcast. She's got a best-selling book. She is a professor. She's doing all of the things that the journey has been without bumps and bruises. But I think what is so important is to tell those stories and to tell how you come back from those stories,
Mhm.
those things that happen, right? And so
Mhm.
you said, what in the world was on your mind? Well, my viewers know, and you know, I'm a Christian. So I'm gonna tell you that was God moving you in the direction that you needed to go. And
Mhm.
sometimes we're hard headed and we don't go. And God gotta kind of push us in that direction. So you get the degree, and then what happens?
So I got the degree, and it's crazy because I got my degree. My daughter was graduating from high school at the same time. My son was entering into high school at the same time. So what I was doing is I was putting myself in a position where, yes, I have the degree, but I didn't have the job experience. So I substitute taught. I worked, in spaces where I was educating and immersing myself with working with students. But it wasn't until 2017 that everything changed for me. And that is when I had the opportunity to become an adjunct professor at my local university here in Connecticut. And it was a fluke thing because one of my friends that I used to work with at this nonprofit, she became a professor. She said, "Listen, I want you to come and teach for me." And I told her, I said, "I don't know how to teach a college class. I mean, how am I going to do that?" And she's like, "I'll show you everything you need to know." And the rest is history. I've been with this university as an adjunct professor for 8 years, and it's the best decision I could have ever made. Now, I could have gone and worked in the charter school system and stuff like that, which I did work at my son's school, my son's charter school for a short time, um, allowing me to be around students as well. But at the same time, it's like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. I can't believe that this is actually making sense to me now. And I
Great.
haven't looked back, and I haven't looked back since.
I
And I
love that.
and I said to myself when I walked away from that job that the next job that I got, the next career journey that I was going to take, it had to be something that I was passionate about, and I stayed true to that.
Yes. And I just know from talking to you and from reading your book, which we're going to get into in a little bit, that you're very passionate about this work. So, would you say, nope, I'm not even going to ask that question that way.
No,
I'm
go
going to ask
ahead,
it
ask
this
me.
way. I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to ask a different way.
Okay.
What would you say was your biggest accomplishment or has been your biggest accomplishment to date in those 8 years?
Well, that is a very, very loaded question because no, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean, I like to say that things happen in seasons. Um, this season that we're in right now, the biggest accomplishment to date is the fact that the university that I am currently employed with has asked me to be the commencement speaker for the graduating class. I've
Yeah.
accomplished
Come
I've
on, commencement speaker. Yes.
I've
I love
accomplished a lot of things in my life, but I have to say that's up there in near the top. I mean, being a speaker and pouring into people, I pour into my students every time I go into the classroom. That's a given. But to go from that to speaking to students and parents as they are celebrating the milestone in their life, that is the hugest accomplishment for me to date.
that is an absolutely beautiful thing. Congratulations on the
Thank you.
commencement. I cannot wait to hear all about it.
Oh,
So I've
boy.
got another question for you before we get into the book.
Sure.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit. You talked about being in HR and working with individuals and transitioning into the educational space, right? You
Mhm.
told us your whole journey. Oftentimes, people don't think that their skills are transferable. How do you see that skill set from being in HR working with people? Because I can clearly see it. Being in HR working with people in the government and transferring into education. How do you see those skills as being transferable? And what would you say to somebody who says, I want to do a whole different thing and I don't even think I have the skill set to do it?
Well, the commonality are in working with students is that you are working with people and you're working with people in different silos. With HR, you're solving problems, whether it be a benefits package, making sure that they get their paycheck on time, making sure that their promotion paperwork goes through, you know, those types of things. And then you switch over to the student. You have to make sure that they feel confident enough that they are going to be able to transition through their classes properly and learning how to navigate through the college space as a first year college student. So in short, what I would say is that you're providing a service and meeting people where they are by solving a problem that they need to have fixed. And it just means that the platforms are different, but there is some commonality there. You're working
Yeah.
with people to solve a problem. Do I solve the problems correctly all the time? Not always, but I think it's important that both populations, you have to meet people where they are. With HR, people will come into you and talk to you about problems that they have. And, my wife just had a baby. How am I going to change over my benefits? A student comes in, Miss, I know that I have this assignment that's due, but we have a family crisis. Problem solution. So that's how the transferable skills come together.
Yes, yes. And so I asked you that question just to let anyone who is listening or watching know that if you have a skill set and you're looking to move, that skill set is absolutely transferable. You just
Hmm.
got to dig deep. So, okay, we've been in the government. We went on the college tour with our daughter. We went and got a master's degree. We are now an associate professor because I'm sorry, an adjunct professor because we were asked to teach. Where did this come from? Where did the idea for the book come from? Tell me about that.
Well, the reason why I decided to write the book is because I'm in and out of the classroom a lot. And pouring into these students, I have the opportunity to really connect with them. I don't just get in front of them and talk at them for 90 minutes. I engage them and we talk about life issues. We talk about, I'll use an example. I had a lot of athletes one semester, and they were talking to me about life stuff, girlfriends, how to move and in the campus space and stuff like that. So I would clear the classroom and we would have what we call Talk Back Tuesdays.
Talk Back Tuesdays. I love that.
And the athletes, I told them, I said, you can ask me anything you want within reason, as long as it's respectful. We would talk about things like, did you break up with your girlfriend in person, or did you send her a text?
Hmm.
Um, we talked about representation. We talked about perception. We talked about how people view them. You know, I have a very high standard when it comes to my students. Don't come into my class 15 minutes late thinking that everything is everything. Don't come to my class in pajama pants because you just rolling out of bed. That ain't gonna get it from me, because people are watching you always. And
Always.
the perception that you are giving people when you come to class and you don't care how you look, um, being respectful. So I talked to these students about those things. I said, people are watching you, and I said, and you got to rise above the fray and the crazy. If you move the way that people expect you to move based off of how you look and how you conduct yourself, then that's how you're going to be judged.
Yes.
So having those authentic conversations with my students caused me to write this book, because of the fact that a lot of these students that are coming in for the first year have no idea what they're getting into. One of the
None
things,
whatsoever.
none, because the first question I ask them when they come to class the first day, and I mention this in my book, why are you here? Um, and their response is pretty general, pretty basic. Because you're on my schedule, miss. That's not the answer I'm looking for. Did you and mom and dad, or you and your guardians, have a conversation? Did you have the door number 1, 2, 3 conversation? Are you going to college? Are you going to do employment? Are you going to go into the military? Or are you still trying to figure it out? So what that does for me is it gives me an inside track to be able to see the type of student that I'm working with.
Right.
If and I think it's important for you to really lean into that. So that's why the book was born, because I felt like it's not it's a short read, and I know how students are. Their attention span is like this. I didn't want to write a War and Peace novel and the how-tos. There's enough books out there like that. But just wanted to give them a glimpse of what it's like to navigate the space and how to adequately prepare for it before they get to the college campus.
Yes. So, Regina, I think just listening to you give that answer explains your passion. Like I said at the beginning, you're extremely passionate about that work, about this work, but you are definitely being the person that you describe in the book. So, one of the things that you talk about in the book is a support system. And I love that you put in your book something that we don't always see, right? You work through goal setting, reviewing and revising your goals and that type of thing, but then you go a step further and you talk about a support system. Who can you turn to for support? List at least 3 people and describe how they can help you. I think it's so important to think about your support system before you need it. And I love that you put this here in the book. And so while you say it is a short read, I do believe it's a short read, but I think it is one of those books that you can carry with you. It's kind of book, workbook, like a life book that you can keep with you. It's not like I'm just going to read this and sit it on the shelf. So was that done purposely?
Yes, it was because I didn't want it to be a book full of words. I wanted it to be a book that had some applicable, teachable moments that they can apply outside of the book. So even though the information may be in the contents of the book, they could photocopy the pages and they can post it on their walls and stuff like that, and they can carry those skill sets even beyond graduation. Students, they feel like they have it all figured out, and then what happens is they're just like, well, I'll have questions like, well, do you offer extra credit? No, I don't. Um, do you, they'll poach questions to me as if they're still in high school. And that's when I knew. I said, I need to put something in here that is going to be something that they can use, not just when they're in college, but in life. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of those things. And the reason why I spoke about the support system is, um, one of the other things that I mentioned in my book is the importance of understanding what their parents are going through. Your parents are your biggest cheerleaders. They
Yeah.
can get on your nerves, they can nag you to death, but they are your biggest cheerleaders. And they are going to be supporting you from the sidelines until you cross that stage and get that degree. Now, does it get overwhelming when you come home and how's your classes going? Are you doing well? Oh, are you making friends? All of those questions are getting bombarded. And the message comes from the messenger. I used to do the very same thing to my own kids. So, how's school? Are you meeting anybody? Are you getting out? Are you doing stuff? Um, I had to remember that they're adults now.
Yeah.
You know, um, but the way the world is right now, I, it's not that I don't trust my children. It's the environment around them that I don't trust. And
Right.
that support system is how that ties in. A child needs to be able to call their mother and say, Mom, I'm not doing well in my class,
Yeah.
or Mom, I'm really struggling. They need to be
Yep.
able to feel comfortable enough to come to that support system and say, hey, this is not working for me, or I'm having a really tough time. And I use my daughter as an example because my son and my daughter have also been to college. My daughter, as soon as she got her first F, she's like, nope, I need to change my major. I mean, she was like, nope, nope, this is not going to work for me. This is going to bring down my GPA. And then I'm going to yeah, no, I'm changing my major, Mom. And these are the kinds of conversations and support systems that need to be in place because a lot of people don't feel comfortable admitting when they fail. And I
Right.
think that is something that's a whole other chapter, a whole other story. But I think students need to know that it's okay to fail forward, and it's okay to have that support system that's going to say, hey, you know what, it's okay, you failed here, but what you do with that failure is what's important.
Absolutely. And it is building a muscle
Hmm.
that you use throughout life because you don't just need support while you're in college, you need support throughout life. It's one of
Absolutely.
the things that I typically teach in my coaching. So, we'll leave the links to this book down below in the show notes. Know that it is amazing. And one of the things that Regina talks about here that I love is that she also talks about for herself that yes, you're nervous. Yes, you don't know what the first day is going to be like in college. But she talked about how She's still nervous on the first day of every school year. She doesn't know, or every semester. She doesn't know what the semester holds. And I think that's true in life. When you start something new, you're gonna be nervous. You don't know what it holds, but you can get through it. So, Regina, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna list all the things out again. Right? You're a wife. You're a mom. You worked at the government. You went on this college tour. You transition. You're like, hey, I want to go into the educational space. You got your bachelor's degree. Friend says come and teach. You got a master's degree. All of these things. You're an associate. I keep saying associate. You're an adjunct professor. You wrote a book, and you also run a speaking and coaching firm. Tell us about that as well.
So, Dare to Dream motivational speaking and coaching is pretty much an opportunity for me to provide resources for people on how they can get into that space. So, I like to say that I start with goal setting because you
Mm.
can't go into any space, entrepreneurial or not, without having a goal.
No, you
Um,
cannot.
One of the things that I'm currently working on now is I'm going to be rolling out a workshop shortly called She's Got Goals, The Journey to Becoming Her. And the
Yes.
reason why it's important for me to work with women and young women, not just high school, not just college, but seasoned professionals, is that Dare to Dream speaks to what your next chapter look like. And starting a goal and establishing a goal of how you want to get to that end of the road, it's you have to start from the beginning. And I tell people all the time, it can be a very lonely road. Um, you're going to have to keep your head down. You're going to have to be focused and intentional. Things are not going to magically happen for you right away, but you got to put in the work, and you have to have that belief system. Um, as you and I both know, being Christian women, we have to kind of keep our head down and just say, God, okay, I give. What's next? So with Dare to Dream, it talks about students and individuals who want to figure out what the next chapter of their life looks like. So for the college student, when they get their degree, yes, their degree says that they're going into architecture, but they may end up working someplace else. It doesn't mean that you cannot massage that dream of being an architect while doing something else. And it's all about networking and collaboration. I teach people how to harness that power of networking and collaboration, because that's how you and I met.
Yes, it is.
We met
Absolutely.
we met on a platform. We exchanged numbers, talked on the phone, and you and I have talked like we've been old friends forever. But
Yes.
it's the power of networking and collaboration and being able to say, you know what? I think you're onto something, but why don't you go in this direction? Or I can put you in touch with somebody that can help you to get to that next point. So, Dare to Dream is just letting people know that their 9 to 5 does not need to be their final destination. And
Correct.
that doesn't have to be the period at the end of your sentence. You can put a comma there to, demonstrate
Correct.
continuation. So that's what
Correct.
the platform is all about. So it's a one-stop shop. I refer people out to other resources, but I try to help them to get the basic fundamentals on how they can dare to dream and not letting anybody define them based off of what society says they should be.
Yes, that's amazing. So you're saying you're like, hey, you want to know how to network? I'm gonna help you network. I'm gonna help you collaborate. Also, in the book, you gave a definition of words that we hear all the time in college, right? What is an advisor? What are these things? So you're doing the same thing in your coaching program. What is networking? People are like, "Oh, go network." What? How am I supposed to network? What am I supposed to do?
I
It
don't
is
like people. Why
difficult
does
if you've never done it before.
it?
You're like, it's difficult, and I think it's important that people know that it's okay if it's difficult. It's something that you have to learn to do. So, all of that being said, I got a couple more questions for you, Regina.
Sure.
First, before we talk about what's next, I think we've hit on a lot of it, but I want to make sure we cover if there's anything else coming up that you're looking forward to.
Mhm.
What advice would you have for the person watching this saying, wow, I'm struggling right now. I don't know. what my next move is, but what I do know is Regina got over the hump, so I can too. What advice would you have?
There are two pieces of advice that I would give. First of all, the first piece of advice would be do it scared.
Do it scared.
Do it scared. And you know why I say that? Because we need to get out of our own way and get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself. Um, we need to get out of we need to get out of our own way, and I think that that's the problem, and that's where Dare to Dream comes into play. We have boxed ourselves into such a space that we feel as though we can't go outside that box and explore.
Right.
So if you hit your head a couple of times and you fail, so what? Do it scared.
Do it scared.
Do it scared, and you have to let those silence those voices that are in your head telling you something that you can't do it. You need to find ways to surround yourself with people that want to see you win. So that's the second piece of advice. If
Surround
anybody
yourself with people that want to
want to
see you
see you
win.
win, because I'm telling you, I have told you, I can tell you right now, I can pick up my phone and I could, if my phone is ringing and there's somebody on the other end and I look at their name, yeah, no, I don't need to talk to them right now. Because when you're in that space, when you're trying to create and you're trying to build, you don't have time to be sitting around and gossiping about something that ain't got nothing to do with building.
Mm,
You know, because our conversations, we talk about family, we talk about, life stuff, but we always come back and circle back to business.
yeah,
So that's why our conversations are fruitful, because I don't view you as competition. I don't view you as somebody who wants to hurt me. I view you as somebody that actually wants to see me win. And I feel
I
the same
do.
about you. And
Yes, and I feel it every time we talk. I'm gonna share a
yeah,
story if you
yeah.
don't mind.
No, go
So
ahead.
you guys, I had been sharing with Regina just some things that I felt that God was speaking to me. And they were not the direction that I had planned. And I'm human, right? So I was struggling with those directions. I was just kind of like, I don't know. This is what I think. And Regina heard me out. And I so appreciate that it was not in that conversation. She recognized that I was not in the mindset to hear really what was going on. It was the next conversation. She gave me some amazing advice and she said, "Well, have you ever considered this? That is what it's like to surround yourself with people who want to see you win. People who don't see you as competition." I think that is so incredibly important, especially as Black women. There is more than enough to go around.
Hmm.
I have been carrying literally what Regina said to me in my mind, like, she is so right. And it helped me to listen and hear the directions that I was getting. And you need people like that in your life. You guys have heard me mention them on this podcast. They've been on this podcast, right? My business besties, Adrian and Melissa. I talk to them every single day. And I know they wouldn't care that at some point along the journey, all three of us have been in a headspace that the other two had to say, "Whoa, hold on, let me help you," right? And we all do similar things, but we all do different things too. That
Hmm.
is what it's like to have somebody around you that supports you, surrounding yourself with people that support you. Sorry, Regina, that was just on my heart to say.
No,
So I wanted to say that.
no, I appreciate you for saying that. And the reason why it worked and the reason why you received what was said to you, sometimes, and I'm just going to say this, we have to learn to listen more and speak less. Um, we are so busy trying to get out our accomplishments and our issues and our concern that you have a person on the other end of that phone or the other end of a screen that actually is screaming to get something out. And
Yeah,
sometimes in this entrepreneurial space, you have to be able to say, are you okay? And give space for that.
Yes.
And that's what makes it so beautiful when you want to see someone win. You have to listen to what it is. And had I not taken the time to really listen to what you were saying, yeah, sure, I could have reacted and said, "No, no, girl, this is what you need to do." That would
Yep.
defeat the purpose and the emphasis on what I was trying to, the message that I was trying to get to you. If I had
Yep.
acted at that time, I said, nope,
Yep.
I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to process what she said. When we talk again, that's when I will share. But
Yes.
see, in this space, when you want to go out and pursue your dreams, whatever that may be, that is when you have to really listen, because sometimes people just get on the phone just to be getting on the phone, just to be talking, and you're not hearing the person on the other end. And then the person on the other end gets off of the phone like, well, I didn't really get anything out of that conversation because she just dominated everything.
Like,
So
I just wasted an hour. I
I
don't
just
even
wasted an
know.
hour of my day that I can't get back. So I I
Right.
I, I think it's important as entrepreneurs, aspiring, if you want to be an author, coach, speaker, whatever, or maybe you just have the gift of encouragement and you can monetize that in a way that you probably haven't even thought about. But in order to be successful in a space of entrepreneurship, you have to give as good as you get. And that means you have to listen to the person on the other end of that phone, because they really need to hear what you have to say. But there's something bigger, or there's a bigger message out there. But if you're not hearing what they're saying, then they've missed the boat, and so have you.
Yes. Regina, I think to be successful in life in general, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you
Hmm.
have to listen. You
Hmm.
know, they always say God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk, right? So I love that. Okay, 2 more questions, I promise, because I can hold you here all day. Regina and I have some pretty lengthy conversations, you guys. Like she said, we talk like we're old friends, and it has not been a year that we've known one another. Maybe 6 months?
Yeah, I just met you in October.
Yeah, right, right, right. So, okay, what, if anything, is next for Regina that you wanna share with the audience that maybe we haven't talked about? Is there anything that we haven't hit on that's next for you?
I am looking to really build my business in the space where I can get in front of more audiences.
Okay.
Um, Really cultivating my niche, working with college students, working with high school students, working with seasoned professionals that are trying to figure out what their next chapter is. Um, I'm taking this time to really get myself out there and, create spaces where people can see me and see what I do and hear, what I'm doing and stuff like that. Not as in a bragging kind of sense, but to show accomplishments in what I had to do in order to get where I'm going. And I haven't arrived yet. So that's one of the reasons that I want to really take my time, and I really want to get in front of these spaces where I can get in front of audiences and really, really get out here and not treat my business like a hobby. And I say that and not to be disrespectful to anyone, but you have to, if you're intentional about what it is that you want to do and your vision, nobody can take that away from you. But you have to put the work in, and you can't treat it like a hobby. That means sometimes you can't binge watch something on Netflix and you got to roll a proposal out, or you can't go out with your friends socially because of the fact that you have a work meeting, you know, that type of thing. And my family is very supportive in that space. Like I said, they know, anytime I do something, they are my biggest cheerleaders. So that is where I'm at right now, trying to get myself out there where I'm starting to actually know my worth and earn my worth.
And as they say, add tax.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, one more question as we wrap up today. The fun question that I've been asking all of my guests for this season. And I know you're ready for it. I try to make sure people know in advance so they're not caught off guard. If your life were to be made into a movie, what would be the title of that movie? And if you know, who would you choose to play you?
Well, The title of the movie I kind of gave it away when I said She's Got Goals, The Journey to Becoming Her. That would be the name of the movie.
Okay.
The person who I would like to play me would be Felicia Rashad.
Mm, yes.
The reason I so
Mrs. Huxtable,
Mrs.
Felicia Rashad.
Huxtable. And the reason why I picked her is because she has come full circle in her life. I mean, she's an accomplished actress, she's a talented singer, she comes from a very talented family. And she, even though her acting, she was known for the Cosby Show, but
Yeah.
then once that chapter closed, she continued to work, she
Yes.
continued to do roles. Then she decided to tip her toe into academia at
Yes.
Howard University,
Yes.
and she was able to, really to command the stage there. And then she
Yes.
transitioned out of that, and I do know that she was very instrumental in the renaming of the Performing Arts Center to Chadwick Boseman. I know
Yes.
she had a hand in that. And
Yes.
now she is just, imparting wisdom into people. And she, even though she is not on a stage, when she walks in the room, she commands such a presence when she walks
Yes.
in a room. People want to talk to Claire Huxtable, but Felicia is still a little bit of Claire, a little bit of Felicia.
Yes.
So that's why it wasn't a stretch for me, because I really do admire and respect her, even though when they were bashing her about supporting Mr. Cosby, you know, it takes a very strong person to be able to stand on their convictions and not want to go with the popular group. And I
Yes.
respect her highly for that.
Yes.
So that is the answer to my question.
Yes. She's got goals. Miss Felicia Rashad. If you hear that, there might be a movie one day of Miss Regina's life, and she'll be looking for you to play her. I absolutely have enjoyed our conversation, as I always do, Regina. I absolutely have adored this conversation. I want to just remind everybody, and it will be in the show notes when we post this episode. Please, please, please go get the book. Everybody knows somebody in junior, senior year, freshman in college that needs this book. Please, please, please go and purchase that book and make sure you give it as a gift. I'm so delighted that Regina has joined me in a personal service project and has donated several books to students. They will be getting them this October. So thank you for that, Regina. And I just want to tell my audience, as Regina said, you've got to remember to dare to dream. And while you're doing it, sometimes you get a little scared. That's all right. Do it scared and surround yourself with people that support you. Regina, thank you so much for being here. We'd love to have you back someday. And with that being said, we're going to sign off for today. But you guys know what to do. Keep spreading that black girl magic on everything you do. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.